Chemka UK and Chemkana and our own faculty from King Edward Medical University and KEMU alumni. I welcome you all to this 8th Universal Healthcare Symposium on Primary Prevention, which is part of the 45th celebration of Chemkana, Chemka UK and KEMU alumni, ChemUCon. We'll kick off with this session, but before that, I'd like to invite Dr. Asif Khan, who's a consultant cardiologist from UK and President CAMCA UK, for the welcome note.
Privileged to be back to our mother institute, and nice to see your medical students here and my dear colleagues and faculty members. I think this session, primary prevention, we started last year as well, and I will say because I'm one of the co-chair or host of this, so this is one of the best sessions you are attending. And we have very good selection of talks, main focus on primary prevention, and being a cardiologist, I try to get more cardiovascular in it. So, it's a lot of medicine, it will help you a lot. Quick, another thing that we have made a QR code this time for feedback for all speakers, which will advertise in the end. So we will display it and it will generate automatically your certificate if you give the feedback. So, and the other thing is this whole ChemCA UK Universal Healthcare is approved by Royal College of UK for accreditation and CPD point, जो आपके career के लिए होते हैं continuous professional development points. So you can use it as an international conference attendance in your CV, Royal College approved event. So just to, so that is very important that yes, you get the certificate of this, and you can only get it when you attend all the talks and get the feedback in the end. So I think without any delay, and we are with a lot of speakers actually जो आप प्रोग्राम में देख रहे होंगे आपके पास से हमारे पास एक extra speaker भी है हमारे पास. So I think we will try to finish it inshallah around 10:45. And I will invite our first speaker, I think Asad Akbar. As a cardiologist colleague, I think I will introduce him. Asad and we work together, even we are in different places, but we share a lot of cardiology patients. And I think Asad will take over here. He's a graduate from here and he's done his training in Ireland as well as then he did his fellowships in USA. And mashallah, he's a leading consultant in Shifa Hospitals. Asad, hand over to you. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Asif. मेरा time थोड़ा late था, लेकिन I had to go for a couple of cases, so thank you for accommodating. 3 years ago when I started coming for Chemkana and Chemka UK, तो आपको हर एक को शौक होता है कि तो हम नई चीजें कर रहे हैं, latest ना, तो we want to show them. So I came up with these slides of what I do primarily, जो structural intervention है, जिसका Dr. Asif ने भी कहा, तो there were like people who were like from 3rd and 4th year, and I was showing them what sort of advanced structure intervention we do with, and they were clueless. So we came up with this idea that we should focus on primary prevention, and that's probably going to benefit you more. So पूरी दुनिया में जो cardiovascular disease से मरने की सबसे आम वजह ना, that is family history. और पाकिस्तान में जो मरने की non-communicable disease में सबसे आम वजह ना, that is high blood pressure. And they are all sort of contributing to the same cause, they are increasing cardiovascular mortality. So family history almost always manifests itself because of hyperlipidemia. So if we know management of hyperlipidemia based on the recent guidelines, you can save a lot of patients. So these are 3 guidelines we are going to touch upon. I'm going to try to simplify it, so hopefully you guys will end up learning a bit more than what we would if we learn the guidelines only. 2019 ACC and then the 2025 ESC update. So why is hyperlipidemia important? Obviously, family history manifests itself in this. And this is a meta-analysis of all the major trials of statin. And what you can figure out from this is that every 1 millimole of LDL-C increase in the body contributes to a higher or makes a person prone to an early mortality from cardiovascular disease. Based on all of these trials, what they found was that if you keep somebody's LDL level less than 70, you can actually stop their disease progression in the carotid and cardiovascular deaths. So 70 is the sweet spot based on all these trials, and this is what we knew up till 2017. This was the meta-analysis in 2017, and based on this, anybody with a family history who was over 40 years of age and belonged to the Southeast Asian region, the recommendation for them was standard: keep their LDL below 70. And then this is all again data showing that for every 1 millimole of LDL that you reduce, you actually reduce their mortality. And this reduction in mortality is not like a plateau case. It reduces in the first year and then it stays that way. The longer they take the statin, the longer you keep their LDL lower, the more benefit you are providing to them. Why and how does it happen? We know, and even from our pathology days, we remember how does plaque form. We know it takes years for the plaque to form. It starts forming in our teenage years, and that is where the trigger is. If you control this LDL thing in somebody's teenage years, especially when they are prone to early cardiovascular death because of family history, which is again the strongest predictor of mortality in the world from cardiovascular viewpoint, then you can stop this disease progression. And this happens over years until you form a plaque which is full of atheroma, full of cholesterol, and is unstable. Once it's reached to a point where it's 30 to 40 percent of the vessel wall, that is when it's most prone to rupture and causing death. How do you assess someone? तो ये तो स्लाइड आपने बचपन से पढ़ी हुई है ना, तो सिगरेट नहीं पीनी है, अल्कोहल नहीं पीनी है, अनहेल्दी डाइट है, लो फिजिकल एक्सरसाइज है, हाई ब्लड प्रेशर, diabetes and stuff. What is something new, which is not that commonly mentioned, is कि अगर आपको CKD है, अगर आपको कोई भी inflammatory disease है जिसके अंदर chronic infections हैं, HIV and stuff, and then chronic inflammatory conditions like rheumatoid, SLE, all of these make you prone to cardiovascular death. And then older age obviously is non-modifiable and family history is there. तो जो दो चीजें जो मेरे ख्याल है, अगर आप एक चीज याद रख के जाते हो ना मेरी साइड से, वो याद है, और बस बाकी सब भूल जाना. पाकिस्तान इज एट अ पैंडेमिक ऑफ डायबिटीज. मेरे यहाँ पे कभी डॉक्टर सोमिया बैठी है, शी इज गोइंग टू टेल यू मोर, लेकिन वी नो कि पाकिस्तान शायद क्रॉस कर जाए चाइना को भी और इंडिया को भी इन टर्म्स ऑफ डायबिटीज. जो स्टैंडर्ड एक चीज है जो मैं अपने 6 साल से पाकिस्तान में पढ़ा था कि इफ somebody is 40 years of age and diabetic, they should be on a moderate intensity statin. You do not need to check their cholesterol level. अगर सिर्फ एक चीज सीख जाओ और ये मरीजों में डाल दो तो that will be more than enough from my lecture. और अगर ये patients are who are 40 and above और डायबिटीज के अलावा उनको एक और रिस्क फैक्टर भी है कार्डियोवास्कुलर डिजीज पे, जिसमें सबसे कॉमन है हाई ब्लड प्रेशर, तो you need to put them on high intensity statin again without even checking their cholesterol level. So moderate intensity statin on every diabetic is a must. So there is no way you can complete somebody's diabetic treatment without putting them on a statin. बस ये याद रखो, बाकी से भूल जाएं. And then there are people who argue with you कि जी statin के तो YouTube पे, WhatsApp पे इतने side effects आते हैं. Then you can do a calcium score on them. Calcium score थोड़ा सा मरीजों में डर डाल देता है. ये मैं पाकिस्तानी पॉपुलेशन की बात कर रहा हूँ क्योंकि बाहर तो इतनी बहस नहीं होती, यहाँ पे बहुत बहस होती है. और अगर कैल्शियम स्कोर थोड़ा सा 1-2 पे आ जाए ना तो फिर उनको कुछ लगता है कि यार वाकई कोई मसला आ गया है. लेकिन if it's 0, then data supports कि until their age 55 and above, you can probably avoid or you can probably leave them without statin. जो और risk factors हैं, again family history and stuff, this is we don't need to measure that. जो कुछ चीजें हैं puts them in the high risk category. हाँ, जो high risk category है उसमें अगर उनका LDL level is more than 190, they're in the very high, in the high risk category. And then again adults with diabetes, सिर्फ diabetes होना and age 40 plus होना puts them in the high risk category. जो major very high risk criteria है वो है कि अगर diabetes के अलावा भी उसको atherosclerotic disease के एक दो risk factors हैं, then they are at very high risk. 2023 की ACC guideline में for somebody who is at a very high risk category, यानी वो जो diabetic हैं या जिनको ACS हुआ है and their age is over 40, they are in a very high risk category. इन लोगों में आपने LDL 70 की बजाय 55 से भी नीचे ले आना. That is the new recommendation. This is again from the 2025 focus update, and what we need to see here is कि 55 था in 2023 और अब एक और कैटेगरी आ गई है जिसमें आपने LDL को अगर आप 30 तक भी ले आते हैं तो you will be doing them no harm. ठीक. तो what we need to see is कि CKD है, family history again is there, जो कि puts them at the highest risk, and then diabetes with target organ damage. These are the patients who will benefit from getting their LDL lower to less than 55. ये हमारी कंपैरिजन है 2018 ACC गाइडलाइंस एंड 2019 ESC जो अब अपडेट हो गई हैं. एंड मैं एक स्लाइड में जल्दी खत्म करता हूँ. डायबिटीज में हमने बात कर ली है, डायबिटीज इसको भी खत्म करते हैं. एक पाकिस्तानी पॉपुलेशन में ट्राइग्लिसराइड्स आर एन इशू. तो ट्राइग्लिसराइड्स के लिए जो हमारे फिजिशियंस बहुत कॉमनली करते हैं, किसी का भी ट्राइग्लिसराइड ज्यादा है, LDL नॉर्मल है, दे विल पुट देम ऑन फाइब्रेट. सो गाइडलाइंस डोंट रिकमेंड दैट. गाइडलाइन वुड टेल यू कि आपने पहले उनमें भी पहले स्टैटिन ही डालनी है. एंड इफ despite being on statin, your LDL is still above, so if your triglyceride is still above 200, then you put them on a fibrate. Don't put them on fibrate only. They need to be on a statin first. And then in CKD patients, you need to use some other therapies. कितना average benefit आता है? This is average benefit. जो moderate intensity statin है, उससे around 30% lowering of LDL आप expect कर सकते हैं. Then we have other therapies. PCSK9 के पाकिस्तान में available है, inclisiran, which is a subcutaneous injection every 6 months. And if you combine that with statin and bempedoic acid, you can reduce it by 6%. So I've been told I think I only have 1 minute left. So the other thing is जो हम बहुत commonly देखते हैं, CKD patient with statin is the best. सारे statins are not the same. Rosuvastatin की जो adrenal excretion है, that is around 10%. Atorvastatin is less than 1%, pitavastatin is less than 1%. तो CKD के पेशेंट में प्रेफरेंशली आप अगर rosuvastatin ना यूज करें तो it might be the right thing. Alternate therapies ये हैं जो पाकिस्तान में available हैं. Inclisiran is available, bempedoic is now available. ये उन पेशेंट्स के लिए जिनका तो अगर किसी का statin पे target नहीं achieve हो रहा, you add ezetimibe. And if you still there is a room for improvement, then you can add bempedoic acid. और bempedoic acid की खासियत ये कि it doesn't cause muscle aches and pains क्योंकि इसके receptors सिर्फ liver में. And then you have inclisiran, which is expensive, around I think 4.5 lakh per injection, and it's twice a year. And then we have data to suggest कि जितनी minimum dosing regimes हैं, they give you a higher cardiovascular benefit in those who compliance with that. Last cheese में दिखा दूँ, inclisiran is common, is being used now. How does it work? It works by actually improving the life cycle of the LDL receptors on the liver. जो LDL receptors हैं, their job is कि they pick up the extra LDL from blood and they engulf it in the liver, and from the liver it is excreted in bile. If you increase the life expectancy of these LDL receptors, that means more LDL is being removed from blood and is being excreted in bile. So that's how they improve it. Thank you.
Professor Asghar Naqvi. Before we move on, I would like to introduce our chairs for this session. Professor Rahul Hattur is representing the King Edward Medical University chair. He is Professor of Medicine at North Medical Board and we do not have Dr. Fateh Shahzad with us, do we?
He's conducting a few sessions with the young boys.
So he's conducting a few sessions. He will be joining us shortly. And I would also like to acknowledge the presence of Dr. Tariq Azim. He's a consultant cardiologist. He's also representing
I think with the time strain, Asad has to leave for emergency case. That's why he's in scrub. So before Asad leave, I would like to give Asad his Asad take his certificate. So
But I have a confession कि मैंने डॉक्टर नकी की गाड़ी की पार्किंग में भी अपनी गाड़ी लगाई है.
Thank you very much. So I have already introduced myself earlier, but people who have joined. So I'm Asif Khan, and as a current Chemical UK president, and by profession I'm also a cardiology consultant. That's my side business, I believe. So I've brought this talk, which is focused on the pillars of treatment in heart failure. जब हम स्टूडेंट्स थे तो हमें ये पता था कि हार्ट फेलियर को ट्रीट करने के लिए सिर्फ डायूरेटिक्स देनी है, और अभी भी मैं कुछ लोगों की कॉमन प्रैक्टिस देखता हूँ जो वो हार्ट फेलियर को ट्रीट करने के लिए डायूरेटिक्स पे मेन फोकस करते हैं, लेकिन हम ये भूल जाते हैं कि जो लर्निंग ऑब्जेक्टिव्स हैं हार्ट फेलियर, आई थिंक द स्लाइड्स आर कमिंग डिफरेंट बिकॉज़ पावर पॉइंट का कुछ आई थिंक वर्जन है, सो बट मेनली ये है हमें कि व्हाट इज हार्ट फेलियर. हम इससे बेसिकली सिंड्रोम, ये कंडीशन है जिसमें आप में जो आप टिपिकल्स देखते हैं अपने पेशेंट्स के कि जिनको शॉर्ट ऑफ ब्रेथ हो रही है, ऑर्थोपनिया के सिम्टम्स हैं, पीएनडी के सिम्टम्स हैं उनको, और इसके साथ उनको जेवीपी रेस है. तो इसके साथ हम लोग उसके लिए आपको जो है बेसिक इन्वेस्टिगेशन जब तक उसकी नहीं करवाएंगे आपको आइडिया नहीं होगा कि इज इट हार्ट फेलियर which is either reduced ejection fraction. So ये classification जो कि recently अब European guidelines, American guidelines में है, this is very important for all of you कि heart failure can still exist with preserved ejection fraction, and we have to treat some of those patients with some heart failure drugs which are very important, which I will share with you. So you can have ejection fraction more than 50%, but you still have typical features of heart failure. This is very important. जो माइल्ड हार्ट फेलियर कह लें, जो मिड रेंज में है 40 to 49% हार्ट फेलियर, we still need to treat these patients aggressively, otherwise they will decline towards severe ejection fraction heart failure. और जो आपका reduced ejection fraction, this classification now used very commonly in Western world how to define a heart failure. It is like a pandemic, and if it's become progressive, and 64 million patients are worldwide suffering from this, and there's a very high mortality and morbidity associated. And if you develop heart failure, 5-year survival is worse than some many cancers. So we need to be very, aggressive with the treatment of heart failure. What is the pathophysiology? I will not go too much detail, but mainly is the fluid retention, and also mainly contractility and impairment of the heart relaxation phase, and as well as the contraction phase, and that can cause severely raised biomarkers. So आपने देखा होगा कि हमारे जो common blood tests, I believe कि पाकिस्तान में बहुत commonly use होता है वो BNP levels हैं. So if you are not sure the patient has short of breath and some features which may be mixed, either उनको respiratory condition है या cardiac condition है, you just do a BNP level and it will guide you. Though BNP is very sensitive marker, if it is negative, though BNP can be raised in some condition like CKD में raise है, chronic lung condition में raise है. So anything BNP, I will say different markers use होते हैं इनकी values, लेकिन if it is more than 1000, I think you are looking to definitely get echo done. और अगर below 1000 है, लेकिन if you have clinical feature, you should go for echo. UK में हम जो है 400 से above जितने भी patient हैं BNP के, they end up with echo. So I think it's very important they get transthoracic echo for basic investigations. Symptoms of heart failure, as I've already mentioned, signs, is very important as clinical skills. ये आप लोगों की clinical skills जो मैंने देखा है after pandemic, after COVID, हमें से बहुत से physician है वो stethoscope भी patient को नहीं लगाते क्योंकि हमें ऐसी आदत हो गई कि हम दूर से diagnose करने पे लगे. लेकिन I think you should still improve your clinical skill and try to diagnose this thing on the bedside rather before even you get investigation. And you can start them on heart failure medication without even echo and BNP on your clinical judgment that they are suffering from heart failure. So these are the different BNP values which are used in ESC guidelines. But if you have a BNP raised, then you should consider them at least for echo and refer to a specialist. But you can start them on basic medication, as I mentioned. BNP level essential, highly negative predictive value, as I mentioned, and as says can be elevated in renal dysfunction and hypertension, and especially pulmonary hypertension. ECG is a basic investigation you should do in your clinic practice. It can show you maybe signs of any arrhythmias because heart failure can be due to multiple reasons, either underlying ischemic heart disease or can be underlying arrhythmias. So it's very important to have a baseline ECG and X-ray. Again, these are very basic investigation. It can show you that there might be pulmonary congestion. जिसको हम लोग यहाँ पर LVF कह देते हैं फौरन, लेकिन I think LVF is always acute pulmonary edema, which is acute presentation, but you can still have mild congestion or cardiomegaly or pleural effusion on X-ray. Transthoracic echo, as I mentioned earlier, is one of the key investigation to give you the ejection fraction, which will guide you for further treatment. There is a role of cardiac MRI. I know इस पाकिस्तान में cardiac MRI की development शुरू हो गई, कुछ centers कर रहे हैं, लाहौर में भी कर रहे हैं, इस्लामाबाद में भी, and that can detect if there is any fibrosis, and you can also use cardiac MRI for detection of cardiomyopathy. Cardiomyopathy is a broad term. It can tell you either it is an underlying ischemic cardiomyopathy, it is a dilated cardiomyopathy, or it is a hypertrophic cardiomyopathy, or Takotsubo cardiomyopathy, or pregnancy में peripartum cardiomyopathy. So there are a lot of cardiomyopathies, and cardiac MRI is a key. And you can do even cardiac MRI scan even in pregnancy. As a cardiovascular obstetric lead, I do it for my patient. If you are worried about that they have suffering from cardiomyopathy, then it's risk versus benefit, and you can do that even in pregnancy. Etiology, as I mentioned, ischemic heart disease, valvular heart disease, it can be toxins, very common in Western world with alcohol-related cardiomyopathy. I believe, unfortunately, alcohol may also be used in this country as well, so people can suffer cardiomyopathy just because of having used alcohol. Chemotherapy, unfortunately, people suffering from cancer can develop cardiomyopathy and heart failure just because of chemotherapy. And there's a full protocol that people who are on chemotherapy should get echo done before chemotherapy, during chemotherapy, and after chemotherapy, so they know their heart failure is progressive. Reduce ejection fraction, which is the one I will focus more with the time strain. These are the few main pillars of heart failure medications. ACE inhibitors or ARBs. So ACE inhibitors आपके ramipril है या आपके ARBs हैं like Losartan है. Start patient on low dose. Forget अभी उनको baseline kidney function करा लें, लेकिन आप उनको start कराएं, उनका kidney function monitor करें. Baseline beta blocker, heart rate 60 से ऊपर है, they should be on some beta blocker. And MRA or spironolactone or aldactone जो आपके यहाँ use होते हैं, या eplerenone. Eplerenone is better in young patients, especially male, because it doesn't cause gynecomastia. So it's very important you choose the right MRA for patient, especially in a younger male patient. Or SGLT2, which has been a very famous diabetic drug, जो आपकी empagliflozin or dapagliflozin है. This drug is very important and one of the pillar of heart failure because you can use it even in patient who has ejection fraction normal. You can use it gliflozin. It will reduce the fluid retention. I will not go much in detail about all these drugs, function. Diuretic, as I mentioned, is mainly for congestion and release the symptoms. Abiraterone is a drug which is again available in Pakistan. It also helps in heart failure as well as in angina, and you only use it if the patient is in sinus rhythm on ECG or if your heart rate is more than 70. There are patients who cannot tolerate ACE inhibitor or spironolactone that have quite severe kidney functions, then you can use them on hydralazine and nitrates. So these are not very common drug use, but these can be used as an adjunct to the heart failure medication. ICD kya hai? ICD is a defibrillator device. It is fitted on patient. Even optimizing all heart failure drugs, they can still be a risk of arrhythmias and cardiovascular death. अगर उनका after 6 months of full optimization of treatment, अगर वो improve नहीं हो रहे, और खासतौर पे एक drug जो मैं पीछे skip कर दिया हूँ, very important drug is called Entresto. Entresto is a drug which is available also in Pakistan. It is a combination of valsartan and sacubitril, and this drug you use it and you stop ACE inhibitor, and then you put it. Anybody who has ejection fraction below 35%, even some people use for 40%, it has shown 25 to 30% reduction in mortality as well as hospitalization. So it's very important. ICD के साथ एक और डिवाइस यूज होती है, वो है CRT device, which is cardiac resynchronization therapy. It's like a pacemaker, but you only use in patients who had a QRS broad on ECG. Again, these decisions are normally taken by cardiologists. Your job as a primary care physician in primary prevention to start them on the right pillars of the heart failure drug and then refer them to the cardiologist where they can be managed. As I mentioned, preserved ejection fraction, they can be given all these medication. Work on the comorbidities like diabetes, hypertension, atrial fibrillation or obesity. And atrial fibrillation is very common, undetected for a long time. Do their ECG because AF may be the only cause, and you try to prevent atrial fibrillation, try to convert the sinus rhythm by cardioversion. It's very important. They can have underlying valvular heart disease, which can be detected by echo. Hypertension को aggressively treat करें. As I mentioned, CKD can be a challenge in heart failure patient, and then you have to do dose adjustment for these medication. Very common thing जो हम यहाँ भूल जाते हैं हमारे patient में खासतौर पाकिस्तान में बहुत ज़्यादा anemia है, and these people who already advanced heart failure, they need to be treated with iron infusion, not tablets, because they need to at least in the baseline iron profile कराएं, और अगर iron low है should treat it because it reduce the mortality. Obesity, lifestyle management, their monitoring is very important. Acute heart failure, I think you guys are very, especially the house officers are very good in treating them in pulmonary edema management. So, and if people are developing cardiogenic shock, I think then the patient is in trouble. Then they need to be discussed for cardiac transplant, which is very rare in a lot of countries. So it's very important. Right heart failure is also very important to know that you mainly manage with diuretics. There's nothing much we can do in right heart failure. Yes, maybe some role of again dapagliflozin if they have BNP raised. So I will be going on some these things you need to know. These are very expensive tools which are used in countries like Impala device or ECMO device. They're mainly bridging for people for either transplant or get them out of their cardiogenic shock. And LVAD device or cardiac transplant or heart failure center. I believe NICVD Karachi is also started working recently with some centers of UK to work on cardiac transplants, and I hope inshallah Bilal Muhyiddin, we just welcome here. He is leading up for Punjab Institute of Cardiology, and inshallah cardiac transplant will be coming to Punjab inshallah soon as well. So I will finish my talk here. Thank you very much for listening.
My name is Tariq Azim. I'm an interventional cardiologist from UK. हम लोगों ने 2019 में एक आइडिया प्रेजेंट किया था यहाँ पे थ्रू कनका फोरम कि हर बंदा जो भी जिसको भी हार्ट अटैक होता है उसको जैसे हम इंग्लैंड में प्राइमरी पीसीआई करते हैं कि हम बजाय उसको थ्रोम्बोलाइज करने के डायरेक्टली स्टेंट डाल देते हैं. We have been doing that very successfully since 2011, and we wanted. I had a dream कि हम वही project जो हमने वहाँ पे शुरू किया था यहाँ पे भी पाकिस्तान में भी हो. तो 2019 में मैंने एक presentation दी थी. उसके बाद that was followed up by paper as well. The title was National Heart Attack Program. और उसके बाद हमारी मीटिंग हुई जब ये जुवेद अकरम साहब हेल्थ मिनिस्टर बने तो उस टाइम पे उन्होंने ये प्रोजेक्ट शुरू किया. So I'm very proud to say कि अब ये project is up and running. Although there is a lot which we can do to improve it, I want कि हम हमारा जो अब तक का जो work है यहाँ पे उस पे जो है ना बिलाल साहब synopsis दें और देखें कि अब तक इन्होंने कितने cases किए हैं, इनकी क्या क्या difficulties हैं and how we can rectify this. Thank you, Bilal sir.
I see a lot of interesting cases around here. Someone who will understand us are concerned, the old babas. Well, let's see. Primary PCI is no new thing. ये दुनिया भर में होता है और पंजाब इंस्टीट्यूट ऑफ कार्डियोलॉजी में बहुत सालों से चल रहा है. लेकिन जो इसका असल कहानी थी वो थी रिगार्डिंग हैविंग अ 24-hour सर्विस. जिसे कहते हैं आजकल तो क्रिसमस आ रही है तो क्रिसमस हो या ईद हो, शब बारात हो या कुछ भी हो, the service has to stay on. यूजुअली होता ये था कि पेशेंट्स आते थे, आप उनको स्क्रीन करते थे, यूज्ड टू से कि यार यंग इंसान है, टीयर वॉल इंफार्क्शन है, इसको प्राइमरी पीसीआई के लिए भेजो. बूढ़ा आदमी है, राइट इंफार्क्शंस है, इसकी क्या है, वेरी मॉडर्न. What the world has seen is that you must do something to protect the heart as much as possible. Now, of course, the protection of the heart starts from the very basic level. कि जिस वक्त आप अपनी जिंदगी में even younger than you all are you doing your regular exercises? Are you doing your medical checkups? Are you sure that you don't carry diabetes or lipid disturbance? Just because you are thin and lean does not mean that you are not lipid problem. Your liver may not be that much. just because you feel that you are ये जो डॉक्टर साहब बेशक कंप्यूटर पे लगे हुए हैं, शायद कोई आपकी बात ये भी सीख लें कभी जिंदगी में काम आए। डॉक्टर साहब, this is what happens normally when you tend to be. So this is, I'm नहीं, छोड़ो मत करो बेटा। The reason why I'm pointing out this is that when you feel that you know everything, you actually don't know everything. When you think that you are well protected in your environment, that is the time when you are most at problem. So the only way in which we can, as a nation, as a community, as an individual, improve is that if we accept the fact that we don't know everything. हम कोई अकेले कुल नहीं है, वो सिर्फ एक ही साथ। और हमें अपने आप को आगे बढ़ाने के लिए कहीं ना कुछ मेहनत करनी पड़ेगी और नई नई चीजें सीखनी पड़ेगी। तो ये प्राइमरी एंजियोप्लास्टी ये है क्या? This is a sort of a surgical technique, but you don't open up the chest or anything. You just go through it and you do the basics to improve the blood supply of a patient. होता क्या है कि because of a reason, which may be a clot shift, which may be a thrombus formation, which may be worsening of the atherosclerosis suddenly, which may be a vascular spastic, the blood supply of an area goes away. And when that blood supply of an area goes away, mostly it is because of atherosclerosis or something like that. So there you see this atherosclerotic picture down there, and then you use our wires to have an access, balloons to open up, establish the flow. You need some removal of the clots, you remove the clots, and then you put a stent to stabilize the blood vessel. मगर क्या ये एक इंडिविजुअल की जिस वक्त एक अस्पताल में आता है तो क्या ये एक सिंपल काम है? It's most interesting. When you get involved in the dynamics of a hospital working, it sounds very easy, but it is not that easy. There are so many factors behind. जिसमें manpower की engagement है, जिसमें organizational skills की development है. But सबसे बड़ी चीज ये है कि इसके लिए एक steps को define करना लाज़मी. मरीज आएगा तो उसको किस तरह से आपने manage करना है. So the first step, of course, is there has to be a reception to receive the patient. So मेरे अस्पताल की आपने इमरजेंसी में जाके देखा होगा, जब भी आते कहते हैं पहले एक पर्ची बनाओ. उस पर्ची में वो फैसला करते हैं कि पेट की बीमारी है या सीने की बीमारी है. पेट की है तो सर्जरी को भेज दो, सीने की है तो मेडिसिन को भेज दो, something like that. And then it goes on from there. So once that is done, अगर आपकी सीने की तकलीफ है तो आपकी एक फौरन ECG होनी चाहिए. अमेरिका में EKG, तो वो ECG करे, इलेक्ट्रोकार्डियोग्राम करे, ताकि आपको ये पता चल जाए कि क्या उसके अंदर कोई ST एलिवेशन MI है कि नहीं. अगर ST एलिवेशन MI है तो उसकी लाइन ऑफ मैनेजमेंट एक हो जाती है. अगर ST एलिवेशन नहीं है और कोई ऐसी मेजर कार्डियक ECG के अंदर एलिमेंट नजर नहीं आती तो उसकी मैनेजमेंट हो जाती है. And from there you start moving your patients. Then of course is the screening room. What is a screening room? The screening room tells you what the patient may be having. Someone is going to examine and see what is the pulse like, what is the blood pressure like, is the chest clear or not, is he in a failure or not, is he a person who carries some other comorbidities or not. पूछेगा जी आपको डायबिटीज है, पता चलता है कि जी वो तो पेशेंट डायलिसिस पे चल रहा है, you already know that he is now a major kidney failure. पता चलता है कि जी उस पेशेंट को तो कम खून की उल्टियां आएंगी, you already know that there is a problem, you can't give this patient a lot of blood thinning medications or antiplatelet medications, etc. So आपने वो सारी चीजें मतलब evaluate करनी है और फैसला करना है कि is this patient a safe patient to go to the cath lab or not, and then you have to assess कि जनाब आपके पास वो resources available हैं कि इसको आप handle कर सकते हो. ये नहीं होना चाहिए कि आप उसको cath lab में लेके जाओ, theater में लेके जाओ और sorry I don't have the equipment to handle it. You have to handle everyone before you know it. So this is what a screening room is all about. Then is the preparation for primary PCR at the ER ward. एक इसमें prep की जो बहुत importance है हमारे मुल्क के अंदर especially, वो है कि आपको फैमिली से कंसेंट लेना है, इंडिविजुअल से भी कंसेंट लेना है और फैमिली से भी कंसेंट लेना है। नाउ कीप दिस इन माइंड कि दिस इज अ हार्ट अटैक प्रोसेस गोइंग ऑन, स्कीमिक प्रॉब्लम्स हो रही है, दिस स्कीमिया कैन सडनली गो इनटू एनी डायरेक्शन। वो ज़ाहिर अभी ठीक है और थोड़ी देर के बाद उसको वीटी चल पड़ता है, प्रेशर ड्रॉप, एंड इफ यू आर नॉट एबल टू रिएक्ट in time and get in back after cardioversion, you will lose your patient or may have a brain death coming out. So you have to explain quickly, correctly, and in a fashion that the patient is not threatened by it. अगर आप उसको कराओगे तो तू मरने तेरे बहुत चांस हैं, तो कहीं मैं क्यों कराऊँ? If you say कि yes there are certain risks, पर सीढ़ियाँ होती हैं तो रिस्क होती है कि पाँव तिल जाए तो सर पे गिरोगे तो सर फट जाएगा. It's just about that. So you take a risk and explain to the patient. And then, of course, the patient is then shifted to the cath. So for you to understand further, patient comes in, step 1, registration is done at Punjab Institute of Cardiology. Step 2, the patient is pushed off. These things are also running simultaneously. Family member आ गया साथ, वो registration करा रहे हैं, hospital staff ने उसको ECG के लिए move कर दिया. साथ ही उसने ECG पकड़ी है, उसने जाके कंसल्टेंट को दिखा दिया, डॉक्टर को दिखा दिया, उसने कहा सर ये काम पूरा हो चुका है. There is a full blank ST elevation MRI going on, and they will shift the patient into the area of interest. From there, वो administration आ गई है, and over here the patient is in step 4 line, and then of course the patient goes in. तो जिसमें ये सारा कुछ होता है, उसके बाद क्या होगा? So the patient will be in the cath lab, and once the patient is in the cath lab, then the whole drama will start. Why do I say the drama? There is a chest discomfort going on. The oxygen may not be correct at that moment. You are in a fast track movement and you have to get the things moved correctly. And once you are getting your things moved correctly, उसके अंदर पूरा एक moment to moment चीजें नजर आती हैं. तो ECG चल रही है जिसमें ST segment ऊपर गई हुई है, इधर से पेशेंट मैसेज को ना साथ ही ST सेगमेंट्स बैठ गई एंड द पेशेंट इमीडिएटली सेज ओए मैं ठीक हो गया. इमीडिएटली. यस देयर आर फ्यू एग्जांपल्स ऑफ अदर वे आल्सो, बट देयर इट इज द मैजिक हैपनिंग इन फ्रंट ऑफ योर आईज. सो वो जो ऊपर वाली फर्स्ट व्यू जिस पे लिखा हुआ है दैट इज एन LED गोइंग अवे. नाउ LED इज कॉल्ड द लेफ्ट इंटीरियर डिसेंडिंग. इसके आगे हमने O लगाया हुआ है, लाडो. Why? Because this vessel is also nicknamed the Widowmaker. And rest assured कि ये सिर्फ बंदे नहीं मारती, ये औरतें भी मारती है. ठीक है, तो विडो भी और विडोअर भी वो दोनों पैदा होते हैं अगर इसका आप ध्यान नहीं करेंगे एंड थिंग्स. This supplies nearly 70% of your LV blood supply. Collateral supply especially अगर developed ना हो तो patient is far more risk. So this has to be opened. And then once the patient is lying comfortably, you can see the vessel is opened and everything is in the right direction. So this is a rosy picture कि ये सारा कुछ होता है. और उसी rosy picture का एक ये हिस्सा है कि look at the heart over here. It is contracting well. You have all the views. And this is of a different patient, done exactly 15th day post anterior wall infarction. This should have been better. But why was it not better? Then I'll talk to you about why and why देखने में बहुत अच्छी लगती है, but it could have been better. Now what does Punjab Institute of Cardiology do? And I'm talking only of Punjab Institute of Cardiology. तारिक अजीम भाई ने अभी आके कहा था, कितना टाइम है? 5 मिनट रह गए. तारिक अजीम भाई ने कहा था कि आके इसके ऊपर कुछ बात करें. Punjab Institute of Cardiology currently does about 52,000 procedures a year. Angiographies and angioplasty. It's a massive team. It's a fabulous team. There are people over here because of whom everything was developed over here, and their husbands have been working day and night like crazy. But anyway, this is the figure of just the ST elevation MIs that we received within 6 to 12 hours. 12 hours पे हम कट ऑफ कर देते हैं कि उसकी जब हिस्ट्री में 12-14 घंटे हो जाते हैं, अब हमें पता है उसके इतना फायदा नहीं होना. सो ये वो MIs है। इसके अलावा नॉन ST MIs भी हैं जिनको हम नेक्स्ट डे पे कर रहे होते हैं या दूसरे सारे हो रहे होते हैं। नाउ दिस इज नियरली 16.5 पेशेंट्स एवरी सिंगल डे। ईद है, त्यौहार है, इतवार है। Yesterday we did 55 primary PCIs. That is more than 2 PCIs, primary PCIs, every single hour. Figures are not right. आप लोगों की सेहतें ठीक नहीं है and majority of them are young. ये एक ट्रेंड है और इस ट्रेंड में आप अगर सबसे ऊपर का दिसंबर का महीना देखो ना लास्ट ईयर, that's 511 और नवंबर का महीना देखो 680 है। एकदम राइज करता है, सर्दियाँ आने की देर है। Lot of people start having problems, spastic disease, ये वो, अपने आप को ज़्यादा गोगा हीरो समझना शुरू हो जाते हो, जाके वो चीज़ें खाते हो and you end up with problems and you are already predisposed. So, in order to improve, what can be done more? So the challenges of primary PCI at a tertiary care hospital. This is basically a tertiary care. आपको पता है ना primary या secondary या tertiary है. So tertiary care hospital के अंदर हमें सबसे बड़ी issues क्या हैं? So first of all, ये मुझे दर्द हो रही थी, मेरा ख्याल था मेरे मैदे में तकलीफ है, कोई डकार आ रहे थे. So he ends up with a gastro. Over there at the gastro, उसको म्यूकेन सिरप और बाकी चीज़ें चल पड़ती हैं. No one even bothers to do a basic ECG. अगर उधर ही बेसिक ECG कहीं से भी आपकी हो जाए तो you start going in. So the message for you all younger is that patient आता है discomfort में आता है, ECG कर लो, कोई हर्ज नहीं, फिर ये ECG आपकी इससे भी आ सकती है. And start making the public aware of it. Next part, sources limitations. Many facilities lack. ठीक है, ये एक reality है. We don't have enough things. But that is where the hospital administration, the know-how, the knowledge and the need comes in. जब आपको पता हो ना कि हमें ये सब चीज़ों की ज़रूरत है और आपको पता हो ना कि हमें सारा कुछ ना करेंगे तो मसला होगा, तो फिर आप उसके ऊपर मेहनत करते हैं. And that is how you start fighting out for both the skilled human resources and the equipment that we need. Logistical hurdles, किस तरह से तेज़ी से आना है, किस तरह से मूव करना है. लास्ट टाइम सुनने में आया था कई में कि ये प्राइमरी PCI का बे, जिस वक्त मैं यहाँ पे हेड कर रहा था तो मैं अपना कार्डियोलॉजी में करता था, तो वो एमरजेंसी में फैसला होता था और वहाँ से 45 मिनट लगते थे कार्डियोलॉजी डिपार्टमेंट में आने में. सो यू कैन इमेजिन दैट यू आर फाइटिंग अगेंस्ट टाइम एंड व्हेन यू आर लूजिंग 45 मिनट्स टू अ बेसिक ट्रांसपोर्टेशन, यू हैव गॉट प्रॉब्लम. सो योर प्राइमरी PCI बे हैज टू बी विदिन 2 to 3 or maximum 5 minutes physical walking distance from the cath lab, from the place where you receive your patient. इससे ज्यादा डिस्टेंस के बाद गड़बड़ हो जाती है. High risk patients profiles. You have to know where your patients are because when your patients are at a higher risk category, तो वो उसके ऊपर आएगा. आप लोगों ने शायद चीज नोटिस की हो जो मैंने पहले दिखाई थी, अपनी हमारी complication rate is only about 1.5%. This is extremely low. Why? Because we don't do high risk cases. We can't do high risk cases. शुरू में कहा था ना कि we have to know our limitations. So our limitations is कि अगर मुझे पता है कि एक patient full frank failure में है, तो I don't have an ECMO device to put him in and start managing it. Because all of this at the end of the day costs. Patient may not be physically be paying, but someone always has to pay. तो कहते हैं free patient है. There is nothing like a free cake. आपका जो एक बेड है ना अस्पताल का, इस वक्त मेयो अस्पताल का, each bed, the government of Punjab, the government of Pakistan, the public of Pakistan pays 12,000 rupees per day without medication. This is the cost of one bed maintenance. सारों की तनख्वाहें, बिजली के बिल्स और अपना जो बिल्डिंग का वैसे एक्सपेंसेस को निकाल लो, roughly 12,000 rupees per day cost है, कुछ ना करते हुए भी एक बेड की. Thus you need to churn them out quickly. Optimizing care pathways, of course, this is something that needs to be done. You have to establish कि भाई कहाँ से किस patient को लेके आगे जाना है, किस patient की problems किस तरह से है. Lot of people just require to be brought in, do a quick angioplasty, give them the start medications, make them understand their problem and let them go. One of the biggest problems of our country is smoking. One of the biggest problems is that they don't accept that they smoke. नहीं जी मैं तो 1-2 सिगरेट पीता हूँ. आप लोगों ने, आपके मेडिसिन के डॉक्टरों ने एक नई बीमारी पैदा की है, पैक ईयर्स. They call it pack years. This is a way to undermine a problem by one pack year. Doesn't sound that bad, does it? On the other hand, अगर मैं ये कहूँ कि this person smokes 600 cigarettes per day, so per month, so that sounds bad. अगर वो 2 डब्बियाँ पीता है ना, तो फिगर्स निकलते हैं. So you have to make it bad. Make the patient understand. वो कहते हैं कि मैं ऐसा 2 पीता हूँ, तो उसके रह गए. So you have to go fast for that to understand. And of course, the systemic gap needs to do everything. So unavailability of all of this, and a quick slide for just you to understand why I'm saying all of this is that expensive. 10 million for a lad, LV lad. अभी कोई 1 करोड़ पैक किसी के हर वक्त अस्पतालों के पास नहीं होते, और फिर जाहिर है इसके ऊपर और भी बहुत सारी चीज़ें आ जाती हैं. So in short, hemodynamic instability is one of the reasons why it becomes difficult. Procedural risks are there, and you have to have a very big team, and everyone's available with you all the time. And poor outcomes, of course, are with the higher risk patients, but they are the ones which you give them extra 6 months or a year to live, and that gives them enough opportunity. And then again, even if the LV burns, at times that good management and the good heart failure treatment later on can carry them for many, many years. So resources and transfer issues, ये बहुत बड़ी problem है कि लिए आपके पास availability नहीं. Now you have to understand and thank your nation. आपके पास 1122 सर्विसेज अवेलेबल, आप कॉल करें, उनको यूटिलाइज करें. आपके पास लोग हैं अवेलेबल जो कि उन चीज़ों को सपोर्ट करने में अंडरस्टैंडिंग लेते हैं. डिसीजन मेकिंग इज समथिंग विच इज एक्सट्रीमली इंपॉर्टेंट. ऑफ कोर्स दिस इज समथिंग विच हैज़ टू बी टॉट रिपीटेडली टू ऑल द फैमिली मेम्बर्स. जिस वक्त भी आपके पास कोई आता है अस्पतालों में, तो यू गो एंड डिस्कस ऑल ऑफ दिस विद देम. And I think with that, I just simply give you 2 take-home messages. The first is, of course, prevention is better than cure. But if God forbid you do fall ill and you have a problem, then try and get treatment as early as possible. और एक term है दुनिया में, time is money. For us, time is muscle. And the best part of this message is this, that money you can always get again. And so far, the research has not proved that you can get your heart back again. और वो दिल, दोनों दिल है, अगर आपका फिजिकल दिल भी और दूसरे दिल भी है, तो उनको संभाल के रखो. थैंक यू.
कि यूके में जो सबसे बिजिएस्ट सेंटर है जिसमें मैंने फेलोशिप की थी, उनके टोटल पीसीआई की वॉल्यूम 3000 पर ईयर है. दैट इंक्लूड STEMI and NSTEMI, and you're talking about 6000 just STEMI. So you can imagine how hard work these guys are doing. I have done one busiest weekend in my life with 27 primaries over 48 hours, and you can imagine what these guys are going through. So I think I will say brilliant job, and I hope inshallah things will get better for our nation here. So I think we'll carry on with our program. Thank you.
Just one moment. I think you're probably the world's biggest center. I'm not aware of any center who is crossing 50,000 in a year, number one. And number two, that number of primaries. Well done.
Thank you, Dr. Bilal, for the bird's eye view. And we all know that the heart disease number are rising, but I'm sure that you are handling it well. And let's keep pushing our boundaries to decrease this cardiovascular burden and shift our focus from treatment of sick to prevention. I think that is also very important message. So we will move on to our next talk for the day. On our agenda, we have a brilliant speaker. Dr. Mehreen Farouk is Associate Professor of Medicine at Ghurki Trust Teaching Hospital, and she's going to talk about the metabolic makeover, shifting the paradigm in diabetes mellitus.
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Rabbi shrah li sadri wa yassir li amri wahlul 'uqdatam min lisani yafqahu. Today the topic is metabolic makeover. A different word, but we all know about it quite well. So what diabetes mellitus is basically. I've focused my presentation more on the primary caretakers and the younger lot of our medical profession. So if we talk in simple terms, basically it is chronic hyperglycemia, and it has disturbances related to metabolism of carbohydrates, fats, proteins, and this in turn leads to a very chaotic metabolic milieu of the body. So it affects the whole dynamic of the human body. So we all know this very well. I'm not I will be rushing through this slide, that there is a whole lot of process going on that leads to diabetes, including reduced insulin secretion, increase in the resistance to the function of insulin, and then leading to hyperglycemia and diabetes. So it is a multimodal and multifactorial disease, diabetes mellitus. Genetic factors, obviously we can't do much about that, but yes, environmental factors, we can do a lot about them. So a combination of both these lead to diabetes mellitus. So we need to work on the factors that we can modify so that we don't land into this point. Diagnosis of diabetes is, I think, not unknown to any of the audience, I believe, that we know how we diagnose diabetes and which category falls in the pre-diabetes or at the risk of developing diabetes. These are the ones that we need to focus, and these are the ones that should keep their socks pulled up and be very vigilant. Why we need to work on diabetes prevention? We have a lot of patients. We are working on diabetes treatment a lot. But yes, we need to protect our nation from this big burden. This is what the world is facing, and the numbers are increasing day by day. The world economy is at a big toll due to diabetes, and we are a very resource deficient country. And the figures in Pakistan are quite alarming. We have 33 million people who are diagnosed to have diabetes, and sadly, I would say we stand at the first number in having diabetes. Why? Because we don't match with India and China in our size of population and the area. So we sadly top this list of having the highest prevalence of diabetes. Few very sad and unfortunate facts, that we have 30% of the population which is having diabetes, and more than 11 million are at the risk of it, at the brim of it, and many of them have already been this list by this time. And more than a quarter of the people don't even know that they have diabetes. And it is our job of the primary care physicians and every one of us, that we need to come out of this menace. And sadly, we spend very less on public awareness, and this is a very sad fact. So who is at risk of developing diabetes? Those who are having a metabolic syndrome, or who are at risk of developing the metabolic syndrome, which is, I think, the global pandemic and the biggest problem the world is facing, including Pakistan. Metabolic syndrome, as we all know, it's a very well-known term. It has multiple facets attached to it, including there is, as Asad has rightly discussed, the lipidemias, and there is increase in the insulin resistance, hyperglycemia, blood pressure changes, and increased waist circumference. And this is, जो कि sadly हमारे part of the world में, if I'm not wrong, few years back, पंजाब में तो ये था कि अगर आदमी का पेट नहीं है तो उसकी कोई शान ही नहीं है. And this is a very sad fact. And now we are topping the list of patients having the highest incidence of diabetes. Obviously, risk factor, overweight, family history of diabetes. इसके अलावा हम सारा दिन बैठना पसंद करते हैं. I have my UK friends, आसिफ है and फातिमा and a lot many, ये लोग बहुत चलते हैं. हम तो यहाँ गाड़ी से उठते हैं, ऑफिस में बैठते हैं, ऑफिस से उठते हैं, घर में बैठते हैं, काम वाली को कहते हैं चाय ले आओ मेरे लिए. So that is the worst thing. We sit a lot and we need to change that. And these are the metabolic makeovers that we need so that we can prevent the further surge of diabetes. These are the sad statistics of Pakistan when we talk of metabolic syndrome. And I tell you, these are very small number of people who are doing researches and are looking up for these diseases, and the rest is all unnoticed and unwitnessed. Metabolic syndrome, as you all know, we have many senior colleagues sitting here, that it is just an interplay of insulin resistance, obesity, hyperlipidemia, changes in blood pressure, and increased waist circumference, and that definitely leads to type 2 diabetes mellitus. It is a dual synergy. That metabolic syndrome has a component of hyperglycemia and diabetes, and it is a risk factor for diabetes as well. Not just diabetes, metabolic chaos has 229 plus complications in the body. And seeing this number and imagine the body, what the chaos it must be facing. So basically, the main, I would say the main focus of my talk would be on the waist circumference or obesity. If we can handle this, or at least we can make the primary care physicians and through them the public aware of that how big this problem is, then we can do a lot. And I think that would serve the purpose of my talk today. So we need metabolic makeover. Why we need it? Because there is a lot of disturbance in the body's micro-metabolic environment when there is obesity. And it is basically obesity, increase in the waist circumference, leading to derangement in adipose tissue functions, leading to inflammation, and then there's a big chaos that is metabolic syndrome, diabetes, and many 229 plus complications. Sadly, we, the Asian Indian phenotype, are at the maximum risk. किनारे पे खड़े हैं हम आग के बिल्कुल, and we need to think about it, and we need to spread this message कि हमें इसको lightly नहीं लेना, weight को and waist circumference को. So basically what happens is that the adipose tissue macrophages, there's a polarization. They shift from their healthy version to the bad version, in common words. That is the M1 type, that is pro-inflammatory, and it leads to cytokine reaction in the body. हमें कोविड का cytokine storm का लफ्ज़ सबको शायद याद हो. Many of us जो उस वक्त थे medicine से related, अभी कुछ young लोग भी हैं. So it is a silent cytokine storm that is going all the ages, all the years. It's not just for a few days as it was in COVID. So we need to think about it and work for that. When we are talking about primary prevention, so I would like to mention that we have the other end of the spectrum as well. That is the people who are malnourished, and they are also prone to develop diabetes. So once we talk about preventing diabetes, we need to touch those people as well. The type 5 diabetes, recently that is the term floated in IDF conference at Thailand, that is because of malnourishment, and it is also common in our part of the world, that is low and middle income countries. So the whole spectrum of metabolic derangement from undernourishment, and the major chunk is overnutrition, is leading to diabetes, and we need to prevent that. This is all that would be addressed if we address this issue. And that includes systemic manifestations, gut health, insulin resistance, and all of the endothelial dysfunction that are associated with metabolic syndrome. Yes, diabetes is preventable, and now diabetes is even reversible. Now the times have changed. So we need to focus on this part of the population. We can prevent 50% of type 2 diabetes if we work for the metabolic health of the people and the nation. We need to work on the metabolic makeover of our country. So the metabolic health has multiple components. This is just a summary of that, but mainly talking about minimal belly fat, that is very important, about lipidemias, blood sugar, BP, and heart health. Many acclaimed speakers have already done that. So we need to focus on that, and for that we need to have lifestyle modifications. The first and foremost step would always remain intensive lifestyle modification. This was a big study recently on the 75th anniversary of Institute of Diabetes and Kidney Health. They have launched, and still they say that not even metformin matches primary prevention. Intensive lifestyle modification is what is the gold standard for preventing diabetes. And it prevents diabetes 58% if we follow intensive lifestyle modifications. And what are the key factors that we need to address? It is the number one in lifestyle modification is that we need to focus or target the large waist circumference and work for that. Obesity is the biggest threat in this part of the world, and on the other hand we are poor, but we are obese as well because we are sedentary, we don't work, and we are sitting on a ticking time bomb of excessive metabolic syndrome and diabetes issue. So this is very important, that we need to shift our paradigm from just BMI to body fat percentage or visceral adiposity. That is very important, because now it's not just BMI that is the one that it causes the risk. And this is the sad transformation that we all are heading towards. So what is important in the fats is the visceral fat that we need to target and try to combat with this part, because this is the bad fat, visceral adiposity, and this leads to increased waist circumference. So we need to focus on the bad fat, and we need to prevent it for that. And for that reason, the new phenotypic classes of obesity are very important. Metabolic unhealthy obesity and metabolically unhealthy normal weight individuals as well. And these are those who have visceral adiposity, but they look very thin, lean, and smart. So we need to focus on both of these. So we need to not just rely on BMI, we need to add on and focus on waist circumference, total body fat percentage, where we have sophisticated investigations like DEXA scan and fat percentage calculators available. So weight loss is of prime importance, and if we lose 15% of the weight of a person who needs to, or waist circumference within the normal range through diet, exercise, and drugs, then we will be able to prevent diabetes or prevent the surge of ever-rising number of diabetes. We have very good novel agents like GLP-1 and GLP and GIP-1 combinations. I'm not going to in detail of that, but diet, exercise, and obviously the novel agents for management of obesity are very important. Exercise has a very important role. And exercise in the morning and afternoon is what can help combat diabetes. This is the latest data. So we need to focus and we need to spread this message around and minimize sitting time. And the diet has also a very important message. I would just highlight this word, that is chrononutrition. The eating with the clock, with our natural clock, that helps in preventing diabetes and reducing waist circumference. So Mediterranean diet is a good diet to follow, and managing stress and focusing on 7 to 9 hours of sleep. All of these components are important as a part of metabolic makeover, and we need to challenge and combat this menace by addressing the metabolic makeover part of prevention of diabetes. So we need to be centered on each individual patient. Thank you very much, and privileged to be here. Thank you so much.
Very insightful talk and very impactful delivery. We will move on to our next speaker for the day. I am honored to invite Professor Fahim Afzal to the podium. He is a pediatrician with a double fellowship in pediatrics as well as infectious pediatric disease. He holds a master's in health professional education and public health. He's going to talk about child-focused prevention of waterborne diseases. Professor Fahim Afzal.
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Thank you very much, Dr. Asif Khan and his team for inviting me on this Universal Health Symposium. सुबह से कार्डियोलॉजी की बातें हो रही हैं और एडल्ट्स की बातें हो रही हैं। मैं आपको थोड़ा सा बड़ों से निकाल के बच्चों की तरफ और बहुत हाई से सिंप्लीफाइड वर्जन की तरफ ही लेके जाऊंगा। This is basically child-focused prevention of waterborne diseases. बहुत सिंपल बातें हैं, लेकिन ऐसी बातें जो आपको being the health care giver, being the parents, being the health professional, ये कुछ चीज़ों को प्रिवेंशन की अम्ब्रेला में थोड़ा सा अवेयरनेस होनी चाहिए और आप उसको आगे डिसेमिनेट भी करें। बुनियादी तौर पे हम बच्चों की बात ही क्यों करते हैं? अभी जैसे डॉक्टर महरीन ने बात की अंडर न्यूट्रिशन की, सो अंडर न्यूट्रिशन नेचुरली दो एक्सट्रीम एजेस का प्रॉब्लम है। If we can broadly say this is malnutrition, malnutrition includes under and over nutrition both. वेट कम भी होगा, ज़्यादा भी होगा, ओबेसिटी भी है और अंडरवेट भी है। So these both come in umbrella of malnutrition. So बच्चों में इम्यूनिटी बहुत कम होती है इनिशियल ईयर्स में, आहिस्ता टाइम लगता है डेवलप होते हुए, तो चिल्ड्रन आर प्रोन टू कैच द इन्फेक्शंस। उनका जो एक्सपोजर रिस्क है वो वेरी करता है डिफरेंट सेटिंग्स में, डिफरेंट जो अर्बन एंड रूरल सेटिंग में। सो दे can catch all type of infection based on their nutritional and immune status। और हम जिस एरिया में रह रहे हैं, हमारा अब इस वक्त हम किस एपिडेमिक को फेस करने जा रहे हैं, आप सुन ही रहे होंगे, सुपर फ्लू। आने वाले दिनों में जब मार्च अप्रैल आता है तो ये डायरिया का पीक सीज़न में चला जाता है। इस वक्त अभी भी आप पेशेंट देख रहे होंगे जो टाइफाइड फीवर के आ रहे होंगे, हेपेटाइटिस ए के आ रहे होंगे, और ये XTR रेजिस्टेंस टाइफाइड्स हैं। सो even के we are seeing the patient of typhoid in 6 or 7 months of age even. So these are actually the concerns which are to be focused in children as well. So अगर हम broadly बात करें what waterborne diseases are, they are cholera, gastroenteritis, hepatitis A, E, salmonella typhi, paratyphi, shigella, cholera, and other parasitic infection. But one of the most important waterborne disease which is near the hearts of the government is polio. So polio program is running since decades, और ये भी एक वाटरबॉर्न डिजीज़ के अंडर ही आती है जिसकी प्रिवेंशन अभी तक हम पाकिस्तान पोलियो फ्री कंट्री नहीं हो पाया। सो इट इज़ द साइकिल ऑफ कंटामिनेशन, contaminated drinking water, unsafe food, inadequate hygiene, poor sanitation and sewage disposal. So there are 5 layers which are helpful in understanding the prevention of these waterborne diseases. The one is the foundation defenses, which include water and sanitation. Then the behavioral defense. Other is the nutritional defense, in which breastfeeding is the most important part. And next is the community reinforcement. हम individual से आगे community की तरफ जाते हैं. And the next level is biomedical intervention, which is the vaccination. So number 1 layer is the foundational defense is securing water and environment. अभी इस गवर्नमेंट ने साफ़ पानी प्रोग्राम शुरू किया है। मुख्तलिफ़ जगहों पे इसका इफ़ेक्ट आना, कुछ जगहों पे जहाँ पे कुछ वक्त हो गया है वहाँ पे इफ़ेक्ट आना शुरू हो गया है, लेकिन जिन जगहों पे अभी शुरू हुआ है डेफिनेटली इसका इफ़ेक्ट वी आर एक्सपेक्टिंग द गुड लॉन्ग टर्म इफ़ेक्ट्स। सो नेक्स्ट इज द बिहेवियर डिफेंसेस, जो कि हमें अपने ऊपर भी अप्लाई करना है, अपने को हेल्थ केयर वर्कर्स पे भी अप्लाई करना है, एंड जहाँ पे हम हैं। This is not even in the hospital setting, but this is the hand hygiene on the important step, जो कि हमें अपने domestic and public places पे भी इसको implement करना है। This is the hand hygiene for there are 5 movement of hand hygiene which WHO has defined. So we have we need to ensure that 5 movement of hand hygiene. And food safety for our children, which we should use the clean water for all the cookings, wash fruit and vegetables properly, and the important thing जो आजकल पेरेंट्स भी आते हैं कि हाँ बाज़ार की चीज़ बहुत खाता है, फास्ट फूड बहुत खाता है, तो हमारा नेचुरली उनसे यही सवाल होता है कि इसको लेके कौन देता है। खाता तो ये है बट इसको लेके तो आप ही देते हैं ना। सो यू नीड टू बी दैट कि आप उसको देखें, आप उसको ना लेके दें या उसको रिस्ट्रिक्ट करें। सो जो इसकी हमारी स्ट्रीट फूड्स हैं उसको भी हमें कंट्रोल करना है। एंड वन ऑफ द इम्पॉर्टेंट थिंग विच इज़ द बेसिक ऑफ चाइल्डहुड न्यूट्रिशन इज़ ब्रेस्ट फीडिंग। Exclusive breastfeeding by definition is the breastfeeding 6 months of age, including no water and no other nutritional food. Breastfeeding has immunological effect, antimicrobial effects, इम्यूनिटी, प्रोबायोटिक्स, ये कुछ सब चीज़ें अल्लाह ताला ने प्रोवाइड की हैं जो एक बच्चे को कुदरती तौर पे मुदाफ़ियत पैदा करने में और बीमारियों से बचाने के लिए इसमें मौजूद है। सो इसको हमें हर लेवल पे प्रमोट करना चाहिए। एंड द नेक्स्ट इज़ कम्युनिटी इंटरवेंशन, कि हम स्कूल अवेयरनेस प्रोग्राम हैं और कुछ स्कूल एजुकेशन जो गवर्नमेंट ऑफ पंजाब के डिपार्टमेंट हैं, हेल्थ एंड स्कूल एजुकेशन, उस पे मिल के ये प्रोग्राम भी कुछ स्कूल्स में अब रन करना शुरू कर दिए हैं उन्होंने, जिस पे कि ये वाटरबोर्न डिजीज़ और अदर डिजीज़ के लिए इस पे हो। हमारे यहाँ पे कई की एलुमनाई ने ही एक बुक भी लिखी है उसकी उर्दू में, जो कि स्कूल एजुकेशन प्रोग्राम में अभी प्रॉबेबली शामिल हो जाएगी। सो नेक्स्ट इज़ द वैक्सीनेशन। आई वुड जस्ट ब्रीफली टॉक अबाउट द वैक्सीनेशन विच आर अवेलेबल इन पाकिस्तान एंड इन नेबरिंग कंट्रीज। For the bacterial waterborne diseases, there is oral cholera vaccine is available beyond the 2 years of age, but is not available in Pakistan. So the person who travel abroad and who can have exposure, they can get the cholera vaccine. Is oral and 2 doses are given. Next is Salmonella typhi vaccine. There are 2 types of Salmonella typhi available in Pakistan. One is conjugate typhi vaccine and other is polysaccharide typhi vaccine. Conjugate typhoid vaccine is given at the 9 month of age in expanded program for immunization for the children, and it is available only in the government sector EPA program, while in our private sector the vaccine available is a polysaccharide vaccine, which is given every 3 years, and this is a booster required. But for the conjugate vaccine, till now as the data is available, there is no booster required so far. But since this vaccine is recently introduced 3 to 4 years back, so longitudinal data is still coming on up. Hepatitis A vaccine is available, which is given 1 year after 1 year of age and 2 doses to the 6 month apart. Similarly, hepatitis E vaccine, it is not available in Pakistan, but is available in globally, and more it is for adolescent age group, not for the childhood age group. Next, the polio vaccine. There are 2 types of polio vaccine available. One is oral polio vaccine, which is available in Pakistan in EPI schedule and in the national and sub-national campaigns. And the other is injectable polio vaccine, which is given in the children in the 2 doses schedule at the age of 14 weeks and at the age of 9 months. So next is the rotavirus vaccine available. Also it is available in the public and private sector and is given in the 2 doses with 4 weeks interval, and it is not recommended beyond the 8 months of age. So in summary, that we have to focus on the clean water and sanitation. We have to focus on the preventive aspect at the community level. We should promote the breastfeeding and we should promote the vaccination strategies to strengthen our children's health. So thank you very much.
Next speaker we have Dr. Humaira Ali. Dr. Humaira is a consultant family physician and a board certified lifestyle consultant. She is practicing at John Hopkins facility at Aramco in Tehran, Saudi Arabia. She is going to talk about women wellness. Assalamu alaikum.
Assalamu alaikum and very welcome everyone. It's always a nice experience coming back to the same place from where you belong. Lot of nostalgia and lots of good memories and stressful memories. And especially I would say I had the same butterflies in my stomach this morning when I knew that my slides are not on the screen and I don't have a Wi-Fi that will work. I felt that I'm here just on the first day of my medical school, my father standing out, just trying to check my name on the list, and I'm there. I don't know how will be the experience in the next 5 years in this institute. But honestly, I owe a lot from this institute, whatever I am. I'm sure most of you can relate with that. So starting with a very colorful slide, there is something wrong with that. I don't know what happened, but Wajood zan se hai kainat mein rang. So I'm starting with the color, and just a brief introduction. I started As a woman health, as an obstetrician and gynecology, I started my training here just for a year, went to UK, had a proper training in women health. I was on the training post, near to be consultant, then switched my mind, went to the general practice, and the move which was made just because of the family reasons, it became a passion. और जैसे हमारे पेरेंट्स कहते थे कि पढ़ो, पढ़ाई कभी जो है ना बेकार नहीं जाती. At some point I felt कि मैं इतने सारे सर्जरी कर रही हूँ और अब जाके मैं एक कमरे में बैठ जाऊँगी और प्राइमरी केयर में सिर्फ बातें करूँगी. And my daughter still thinks that it's such a boring job and my father is doing better than you. But honestly, I feel I'm a better doctor, I'm more useful, and it's such a sense of empowerment and satisfaction that I can make a difference. Honestly, because, and I'm so glad to hear from the consultants who presented before me, the specialist, they was like, you have like breadth of knowledge, their expertise and everything, but everything started from a point, a focus of primary care. So the first few minutes are the maximum attention ones. So I would say, yes, we don't have money, but we have a resource, and the resources are younger generation. I wish you would have been more medical students here. So we have a younger generation to understand. So that is the resource, and you have the best skill, and that's your communication. Spreading the word, talking to people, so that making them health aware. Women health is very close to my heart because as of what I've done all my life, and that's what I really work on at the moment as well. So looking at the schedule, the whole Khemkhana, there were many women health topics, but I'm going to talk about everything other than reproductive health. Because women health, it meant always like it's about childbirth and gynecology, but it is beyond that. So we talked about adults, we talked about children, we talked about secondary care, tertiary care. So I would combine a focal point, that's a mother, that's the base. So we have to look after our women so that the families can thrive and communities can thrive. And then we just take it as a broader picture. You educate a woman, you talk about a healthy lifestyle diet, you talk about preventions, you give, like, you generate a nation who is well aware and who can be positive, who can be financially positive, and it is to prevent complications and a reduced burden on the healthcare, which is already there. So when we talk about health in total, so as per WHO, what is health? It is the complete physical, mental, and social well-being. And I think it's more and more defined for women as well. We always talk about physical health, we talk about reproductive health, but we do not talk about mental health and social well-being. So when we talk about primary care, I was glad, I was in the lectures yesterday and they talked about screening programs and breast cancer screening, pap smear screening, and just the cardiovascular screen and metabolic health and diabetes. So that is going on. But mental health, we really have to focus on that. And the creating a comprehensive health foundation by creating a holistic approach. And my role as a lifestyle medicine consultant, as I would very much relate to Dr. Mehreen when she was presenting about the diet and lifestyle. So these are the main pillars. So everything starts from education, from self-awareness, and all of you, whether you are doctors, students, nurses, and paramedical staff, or you're non-medical, totally non-medical, believe me, you can make a difference by spreading the word and supporting people around you. Just a quick picture. I won't go into the numbers, but I would just try to emphasize that there is a transition through which women we all go through, from a child to adolescence, adolescence to a reproductive age group, mother, and then you later on, you go through menopause and older age. So healthcare needs for a woman are very, very different. And it's not about just physical health. It's about psychological health. It's about their social well-being as well. Preventative coordination, preventative healthcare. In primary care, we do your community medicine, population health. We focus on that. So I won't go into detail. And chronic health, I think we have a lot of expertise because, as we said, that cardiovascular disease, metabolic health, diabetes, hypertension, they are all there, and we have expertise. Again, prevention and screening, breast screening, cervical cancer screening, cardiovascular disease, bone health. I'm sure there are metabolic consultants who can deal with that, orthopedic consultants, but just taking you to a very, very basic thing, which I learned as I got trained in the UK. We just write medicine. You know osteoporosis? Yeah. So what do you do for osteoporosis? You give medicine to the patient. There are alendronates, there are injectables. Fine, you can do that. Is there anything you can do without medication? Communication. So what is the communication? So when a patient comes to me and I have to even refill a medication for her and I'm writing alendronate for her, it doesn't end with writing a prescription. It ends with communication. So you might have your grandmother there. So this is a transition. This is not a pathology. This is physiology. This is phase of life. So what will I tell my patient? So I'll tell my patient that you have this, your dadi or your nani, or make sure there is enough light in her room. कि रात को वो उठें और toilet जाएं so she does not stumble over something. Make sure that her eyesight is checked ताकि वो देख सकें, ताकि वो कहीं पे गिर ना जाए. कोई उनके साथ हो जब वो चलें और उनका कोई हाथ पकड़ सके. You are in an airport या किसी railway station पे हैं. All these things, they matter. They really matter. And definitely diet, we do talk about it. So it's not about medicine in terms of drugs or pharmaceuticals. It's about communication, and for which you do not need any resources. You are trained to be doctors or nurses, and you know how to, what is needed. So, and the knowledge should not come from Instagram. It should come from a physician, from a focal point. And that's how the primary care can make a difference. And I'm sure any doctor, not only primary care, a consultant in orthopedics, a cardiovascular, a cardiac surgeon, a nurse who is doing a post-op, every one of us can contribute. Now, looking at some screening rates, which are a bit of not, I wouldn't say a surprise, but yes, they are a bit depressing. They are very low, though the cancer risk is really high. So again, there are campaigns, and of course, I graduated more than 25 years ago, so there is a huge difference. We have really done well, because looking, as I was just listening to the consultants here yesterday, and they were afternoon talks and all that, there's a lot of things going on, but we can still make it better by asking people to become more and more vigilant about things and getting involved in the preventative screen and health. So in primary care, we have women health issues, which are bread and butter. You see them everyday practice. We see polycystic ovarian syndrome, we see depression, mental health issues, and saying that the mental health issue is not a low mood or depression later in life. I can see that in younger children, and there's this media, social media, body image awareness. Honestly, I can speak the whole day, because the women health is my topic. So as many times I have to control myself. We have to stop there. And many of us, we are parents, and many of us, we are practicing physicians. So that's very, very important that we do focus on the mental health in all age groups, and especially menopause and younger age groups. So time is really short, and topic is really huge, so I won't go into much detail. So I would also talk about the transitional phase around menopause, which is not only in Pakistan, all around the world. So there's a physical need, there's a metabolic need, and there's a psychological support that is needed. Mental health in Pakistan, it's about 57% of the women. They need attention, they need your help, they need focus, and it should not be a taboo, it should not be a stigma. And who can do that? Every doctor. And I'm happy that the primary care is evolving. So probably more of you can get into primary care. And if there's a stronger primary care, there is less financial burden, less complicated disease, and less burden on the whole healthcare. So what happens? Why we don't get these facilities in Pakistan? Of course, financial barriers are there. There is a provider shortage. Geographical distance in the far off areas, women do not want to go and discuss with the male physicians. There are cultural barriers. We don't talk about things which we think are a bit of like embarrassment for her, for us, and we do not really seek help for that. And there is a lack of infrastructure. How can we make it better? We know the problem. So each and every one of you, please build a holistic approach, talking to the patient for everything they want to know, give them more time, build trust. Continuity of care is important. And in the coming years, all around the world, there are a lot of innovations. AI is helping, telemedicine is there. There are a lot of resources, so a lot of information platforms are there, but they should come with knowledge, with expertise, and whole information, and everything should be given from the professionals, not by the word of mouth, because in that way you can lose your patients, and then it will rather cause harm than benefit. So spreading a word is the most important thing. And what I would say, what we need to do as a take-home message, that we have to develop a comprehensive care approach, holistic approach, looking after each and every one for their physical, psychological, mental needs, trying prevention, early prevention, and prevention. Prevention is better than cure. A simple thing, but that is still the base of medicine, always beneficence and no malfeasance. And patient-centered communication. And communication is something in every specialty, not only in medicine, all around the world. Communication. Talking to people, talking to them in a way that they can trust you. They can open up with you and you can solve their problem and you can tell them. Okay, so there are individual challenges you can overcome anytime when you want to. Social barriers, slowly, by educating people and creating an infrastructure can help. And of course, the systemic issues, they can get better with time. I've just made a tradition in my presentations. I read books. I never used to read books, but then you always learn from your colleagues. So I started listening to books. So think out of the box. There were people before us. There were people behind us. So it's a good read or good listen or Spotify, whatever you would like to do. You'll get idea how people overcome barriers, and each and every voice matter. So make your voice visible and make a change. Okay, thank you so much.
Now I will conclude our session here, but before we conclude, I would request our chair for the session from King Edward Medical University, Professor Israrul Haque, to say a few concluding remarks and summarize the key take messages from today.
Thank you very much, Dr. Somia. It's my pleasant duty to thank all the participants, especially our speakers, faculty members. All the talks were very enlightening. I learned a lot. I think everybody got a holistic approach, starting from the pediatrics to community to medicine to preventive medicine. It was a nice session, well constructed. Thank you very much, all the speakers, for the very nice talk. Thank you very much, Dr.
Dr. Tariq Azim and Dr. Asif to come over here for the distribution of certificates to all the speakers. I think we only have 3 here. I would request Dr. Fahim Afzal first to take away his certificate.
Thank you very much.
Dr. Mehreen Farooq. Dr. Humaira, please come over. Thank you so much. I would request Dr. Fahim again because we missed the picture. Our chair for today's session, Professor Israrul Haque. And representation from King Edward Medical University, our student coordinator.
So thank you, Soumya, for that.
I'll invite Professor Samina, who's the rapporteur for this session. Dr. Fatma, her KEMCA UK chair. Dr. Kamran Yusuf, focal person for this session. Thank you very much, everyone. I hope the tea is served outside.
Yeah. So I think it's very important that QR code, if you scan, everybody will get certificate for this session. You just have to fill in your details and score your speakers. You will get a certificate for Royal College approved. So make sure you do that before you leave, because then you don't need to worry about your attendance and everything. This will cover everything. And thank you very much once again for all the organization team, my medical students here who helped to make this session in time. And inshallah, there is further meeting going to start in the Maqbool Hall. We have brought Umayya lecture, which is we got a speaker from Poland. And inshallah, we will carry on in Maqbool Hall. Thank you very much once again for coming. Thank you.